Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, friends. It's time to return once more to that beauty, the NCC 1701, as we are watching the third and final season of Star Trek, the original series. This time, episode 16 of the third season, The Mark of Gideon. Oh, it's T-9, friends. T-9 until we're done with the series, done with the original series. I cannot believe it. But just to let you all know what's going to happen after that, I am going to hopefully be watching Star Trek and reacting to Star Trek Continues, and then that'll also bleed into the movies as everything gets dropped. And then after that, the Next Generation and points beyond, I believe. But friends, the here is the now, and we're watching Star Trek, the original series, season 3, episode 16, The Mark of Gideon. If you could do me a favor before we get started, hit that like button, smash that subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. It greatly helps out a small channel, and it allows me to alert you next time it's time to board the NCC 1701. And of course, if there's anything that we do that you would like early or in its full-length format, the link to our Patreon is in the description. Not a fan of Patreon? Stick with us here on YouTube memberships. You'll get all of our episodes about a day early, plus any bonus episodes we come up with. But my dear friends, all that is then and this is now, and now it's time to boldly go aboard the NCC 1701 as we watch Star Trek, the original series, season 3, episode 16, The Mark of Gideon. Prepare to engage maximum warp reaction, and T-9, away we go!
Stardate
Look at that beauty.
423.4. We are orbiting the planet Gideon, which is still not a member of the United Federation of...
Gideon's a planet.
Gideon has consistently refused the presence of a delegation from the Federation on its soil or any surveillance by the ship's sensors.
Really?
May I have them, please?
875
875
020
020
079.
079.
It's interesting. It's rare to get coordinates. What the hell?
Mr. Spock?
No Spock.
Mr. Spock? Spock?
Call the bridge. Did the doors open? Okay. I thought we were in some type of like... Oh no. By the way, interesting angle. We hardly ever see from that far forward on the left. Our left, they're right.
Engineering.
Holy...
Mr. Scott?
Nobody.
Lieutenant Uhura, report immediately.
Now, here's the question. Are they all gone, or is Kirk gone? We've had a lot of this. Different phases, different planes of reality.
Bones. Bones, answer me.
Oh, wow. Try hailing Gideon.
Still orbiting Gideon.
Okay. All right, Jim's going to tell us about the final frontier, everybody. Interesting setup. We've had a lot of, again, I don't want to speculate too much, but if everyone's been taken, or this is like a pocket plane, or he's out of phase or something, the only reason why I think that is he transported down but didn't go down. He transported and kind of flickered and appeared on the pad. And I remember that with the Tholian web, he was saying that, you know, he was in a universe that was completely empty. He was by himself. Now, again, that doesn't speak because the Enterprise is here. So it's weird. So it's like, was sentient life like taken off of the Enterprise? Something's happening. Either Kirk's not where he thinks he is, or the crew was taken in a moment. Either way, I'd try to hail the Gideons and see what they had to say. Something tells me they're not going to be very cooperative. Written by George Slavin and Judd Taylor.
The one thing that is obvious is that I suffered a memory lapse, during which time I bruised my arm. It is causing me some irritation.
Oh, so there was more time. Kirk somewhere else.
Captain Kirk, this is Ambassador Holden. The Council is still awaiting your arrival.
He was beamed directly to your council chambers. Please verify your coordinates.
875 020.
That's why they gave us the coordinates up top.
If he is not here, that is your own responsibility, Mr. Spock, and that of your staff.
I do not deny that, sir. I am not attempting to blame your personnel. It is possible that Captain Kirk materialized on some other part of Gideon.
Let us hope it was on dry land.
Oh,
I request permission to beam down to conduct the search for our captain.
Permission denied.
ooh.
If you will grant permission,
Of course, we shall institute a thorough search. In the meantime, Mr. Spock, I suggest that you look to your machinery.
I said good day, sir.
I must acknowledge once and for all that the purpose of diplomacy is to prolong a crisis.
Well, that doesn't mean that we have to behave like children and listen to some fool lecture by a diplomat.
Unfortunately, diplomacy is the only channel available to us at the moment.
He can invade.
Therefore, we cannot scan it. Therefore, we are unable to select coordinates. They must be provided by Gideon.
Hmm.
Are there any other possibilities?
They are endless, Mr. Chekhov.
Yeah, a couple of them are not great.
I mean, you're going to scan space for him?
But, sir, that could take years.
Then the sooner you begin, the better.
Wow. I wonder if he's leaving some type of like anomaly in real time. Oh, we got somebody else. This is going to be very wink of an eye.
O'Donna. Yes, my name is O'Donna.
O'Donna?
Why did you bring me here?
What?
Is this entire ship yours?
Not my personal property, but I'm the captain.
And you have it all to yourself?
Well, not anymore.
And I didn't bring you here.
If you didn't bring me here...
That's right. Who has?
Who did? Yeah.
What happened before you came here?
Yeah, there we go.
Try to remember, it's important.
Jim. Throttle back.
Yes, I was standing in a large auditorium, crowded with people. Thousands pressed in against me. I could hardly breathe.
Wow. Like a mob or...
430, and I apparently am the only one left.
I'm sorry. I wish I could help.
Yeah, let's work together here.
And then suddenly I was here on your ship.
She corrected herself there. They kept it, which is kind of neat.
How long have you been aboard the Enterprise?
I don't know. Not long.
How far back can you remember?
Did you advise them that the captain's life is at stake?
Yes, sir.
I wonder if they're able to respond.
The Bureau of Planetary Treaties.
Contact them directly.
I did, Mr. Spock. They insist that we must go through Starfleet channels.
You're getting the traditional runaround.
Diplomats and bureaucrats may function differently, but they achieve exactly the same results.
Okay, 5423.4.
9 minutes of my life has been lost.
Interesting. Okay.
What is Gideon?
That's your home. The planet that you come from.
Yeah, where the hell are...
Gideon? I don't know any Gideon.
Where did you come from?
And you were beamed aboard from Gideon.
I do not think so.
But she didn't appear on the pad with you. I mean, she didn't have to, but...
We're no longer over Gideon.
Where the hell are we?
Captain, before I said I wasn't afraid. Now I am.
That makes two of us. And by the way, I do think Jim would admit it if he was scared. I just don't think he gets scared a whole lot.
As you requested, we made a most thorough search, and you will be relieved to know that you may now investigate all the other possibilities and forget about Gideon.
Ah.
Surely, Mr. Spock, you do not intend, I hope, to create a dispute between the Federation and Gideon?
Oh, boy.
Mr. Spock, you are an officer of a spaceship. In your profession, you use many instruments, tools, and weapons to achieve your objectives.
Yes.
I am basically a scientist. Clarity of formulation is essential in my profession also.
I'm glad to hear it.
Way to go, Spock.
To choose your words more precisely.
Whoo!
You gonna let him get away with that?
No matter what you say, Mr. Spock, he'll twist your meaning.
Yes, he's infuriating, sir. How can you stand?
There was considerable interference with your transmission. A lot of noise drowned out what was said. Would you repeat, please?
Plum is going to lose his shit.
I request permission to transport down to Gideon.
Forgive me, Mr. Spock, no criticism of your equipment.
I'll come down on his shuttle then. How's that?
That transporter was in perfect condition. I guarantee that myself.
Scotty.
Right this minute, and I'll prove to those
Scotty.
gentlemen.
Mr. Scott, you'll go to the transporter room and await my orders.
Yeah, we need you off the bridge. Have you been drinking again, Montgomery?
We would appreciate an opportunity to test the equipment. I therefore request permission to beam down to you.
Spock using the language.
Grant this one request.
You are a very persistent fellow, Mr. Spock.
He doesn't get rattled because he's doesn't allow his emotions to cloud his judgment.
You will therefore transport a member of my staff to your ship. Let us first see if that works.
Okay.
My assistant will provide you with the proper, what is the word?
Coordinates.
Thank you. Proceed, Crowder.
First, I must kill Sonic the Hedgehog.
709. 709.
This guy's gonna like explode or something. It just crumples over.
No, not so fast, Mr. Spock. That is quite a different matter. We agreed to allow one representative on our soil, your captain.
What did we just talk about?
However, your request will be taken up at the next full session of Gideon's Council.
That meets a week from never.
Mr. Scott, beam down the gentleman from Gideon.
Put him in the ocean.
Enterprise to Starfleet Command. Enterprise to Starfleet Command.
Enterprise to Starfleet Command. Enterprise.
And great cut.
Isn't it in working order?
It seems to be.
Then someone should have heard you.
Can you control the ship? Can you fly her? Can you slow her down? Can you?
We're no longer moving faster than the speed of light. I've trimmed
Check.
down to sublight speed until we find out where we are.
Feels the same.
Of course it does.
Man, Jim knows when you drop from warp to impulse, there's got to be, if you're on a ship like that, you got to know when you come out of warp, right? Even if it's like inertial dampeners, I think.
So quiet. So peaceful.
It isn't really, you know.
It isn't really, though. Looks good. A lot of shit to find in there. A lot of trouble to get into.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Ah, here comes the seduction.
And we're alone. Can you make it last a long, long time?
How long would you like it to last?
Forever.
Okay.
All my life I've dreamed of being alone.
Interesting.
Why are the people of Gideon like that?
Gideon,
What's the name of your planet then?
I told you I don't know where I come from. What my planet is.
Explain it.
Does it matter so much?
Yes.
Why are you getting mad about that?
I want to ease your feeling of dread. Your fear that all your crew no longer exists.
It's like Jim didn't even consider that.
I've got to contact whoever is manipulating us. There must be a way.
I mean, Bud, she might be sitting right beside you.
Remember why your people dream of being alone.
Because they never can be.
Overpopulation? Like crowding? She said she was in like an area that was like packed full.
No beach, no mountain that is not filled with people. Each one of us would kill in order to find a place alone to himself.
Really?
Who sent you here?
No one commands Adonna. I was not sent here.
No one commands, huh?
You come
See-
to kill.
See how he goes from like forceful to back to the seduction?
If you come to die.
I don't know. I don't care.
Why did he ask that? That's... I mean, if you're gonna be stuck in a universe... What? Did they pluck the two of them to like observe them? Certainly looks that way. Jim, check out the view screen. That was a very strange that cuts, like that pan, that quick pan.
Do is find a medical kit, and I can completely cure this.
Yeah, but what's the bruise? Bruise in 9 minutes. Where the hell do they come from?
When you become sick and die.
She seems very interested in that.
Do you know, I don't even remember how this happened.
During your 9 minutes.
The ship's engines don't make that kind of sound.
But there is something wrong with the equipment. Could that be it?
I know every sound that this ship might make.
Hmm.
This is a viewing port. We'll be able to see outside if there's a storm.
Oh, there we go.
If it works.
Well, hey guys.
The faces of people. And then the stars.
Does she recognize like their dress, like what they're wearing? It seems to be a kind of a uniform of sorts.
But you said we were moving through space.
Yes, I said that.
Then the people can't be out there.
They look transparent. They looked almost illusory.
Please don't frighten me.
Oh, frighten you? I'm terrified.
Just in our minds.
You mean that we're going mad?
Or you're being exposed to a chemical, or...
It's creating the illusion in our minds that we are somewhere near your planet.
That shit happens way more than you think, O'Donna. It's a very Telosian setup. You've got, like, the girl and the captain and people watching and illusions.
Not until I find out what happened to my crew.
Are they dead? I don't know.
Did you kill them so you could have the ship to yourself?
Captain, something's happening to me.
The Gideons, you fuckers.
Now there will be sickness.
What? Why is she sweating so bad? Does she come from a planet where nobody dies? That's why it's so crowded? I'm speculating, but... Jesus. So how does she not know she's from Gideon? What's up?
We have no need of any of your medicines.
But she's ill.
And we're grateful to you for her illness. You have done well, my daughter.
Daughter? This is effed up. The one guy in the face, we've seen him as like multiple security red shirts. The guy in the front, taller of the two.
The crew will not understand it.
As your crew suddenly become interested in provoking a war, that is not Starfleet's mission.
Oh boy.
They would not dare harm him in the Gideon Council chamber.
Sir, the captain is not being held in the Gideon Council chamber. He is being held nearby.
Yep.
Permission denied.
Admiral, I wish to state for the record that your decision is completely arbitrary.
Well, so did they do like a mock-up?
How will you know when I am to die?
Your body temperature will be very great. You will see us, but you will not know who we are.
Was this just like being around Jim compromised her immune system? Because this is really, if this is what they're doing, they're introducing sickness to Gideon to like cull the population. That is crazy.
It's very rare and always fatal if not treated within 24 hours. I know, it almost killed me.
Yes, our Prime Minister learned about you during our negotiations. That's why we brought you here.
That's what they took out of his arm.
Yes, as O'Donna told you, we have no need for medical practitioners here. Our apologies.
No one gets sick and no one dies. Crazy. All right, can you guys fight? Apparently not. Nice, Jim. Come on, Jim.
I don't understand how Starfleet can deny us permission to beam down to search for the captain.
I mean, couldn't you, like, colonize another world?
Unfortunately, I must violate a direct order from Starfleet.
That's the best possible decision you can make, Spock. I'm with you.
Breaking all the rules? I'm in.
875-020-079.
Those are different from where they beamed him up from.
875-020-709.
Oh, yep.
I shall beam down at once. Mr. Scott, you have the con.
But don't they have a shield up?
Negative, Doctor. I cannot accept the responsibility for ordering a fellow officer to violate a Starfleet directive.
I volunteer.
I'm not asking you to make the decision for me.
The situation forces me to do so, Doctor.
Well, in that case, it's the worst possible decision you can make, Spock.
I'm off the Spock train. So they have a mock-up of the Enterprise? That seems excessive for this little charade.
Spock here, Captain Kirk.
Yeah, technically none of this stuff might even work. You might think it works, it might not be hooked up to anything. That tricorder should tell you a lot.
The atmosphere on Gideon has always been germ-free, and the people flourished in their physical and spiritual perfection. Death became almost unknown to us. It occurred only when the body could no longer regenerate itself. And that happens now only to the very old.
How old?
Any of the new techniques to sterilize men and women?
Every organ renews itself. It would be impossible.
Then let your people learn about the devices to safely prevent conception.
The people of Gideon have always believed that life is sacred.
So they're not listening.
Capacity and our great longevity.
And the great misery which you now face.
That is bitterly true, Captain.
I actually like that shot through the table.
We are incapable of destroying or interfering with the creation of that which we love so deeply.
This guy's good. Very good actor.
My love for my daughter is too deep for display.
This guy's a really good actor.
You will stay. Your blood will provide it.
Oh, no, sir, not me.
I'm not gonna help to...
She hoped you would love her and wish to stay.
So that was your plan?
Oh, I mean, how is that gonna help anybody? Draw blood from me forever?
Stay with us. We're desperate.
So many better ways to go about this.
You see, you cannot leave us now. Go to her.
If only to get away from you all, yes. So this place has like working turbo lifts. I mean, come on, Spock. If this is a mock-up of the Enterprise, Spock should be like, okay, this is obviously fucking fake. I mean, he's way too perceptive.
Duplicate of the Enterprise.
This is my station. It would have been cooler if he had beamed aboard and looked around like once and been like, this is a duplicate of the Enterprise. Like, just immediately.
Spock to Enterprise.
Scott here, Mr. Spock.
Nice.
I'm on board an exact duplicate of the Enterprise.
But what about the captain?
I'm sure he's on board somewhere. I'm picking up life readings. Spock out.
I'll let you know.
No. Her death at so young an age will let the people know for certain that our life cycle can be changed.
Jesus, we need more explanation on this, dude.
Began here.
And it can continue.
Let me save you. I love Spock so much. I mean, it is ridiculous how much I love this character. Hey, guys. You know Spock has had enough when he doesn't use the pinch.
Captain, you're looking well. Evidently, Starfleet's analysis was correct.
Mr. Spock, we have a patient for Dr. McCoy. Have Scotty beam us up.
Yeah, you're not going to use my blood to kill somebody and then not let me retcon that.
Please do not interfere. I already have one serious problem to resolve with upper echelons.
I broke a shit ton of orders coming down here.
Well, it was close, but you made it.
I am cured.
Right. Just like the captain.
And I get to go back down to that hell. You're welcome.
How can you bear to look at me after the way I deceived you?
At least you owe me the privilege of letting me look at you.
I mean, he understands. Jim's not... I mean, Jim gets things. He understands the approach here.
That is what I must do. I am needed there now.
Duty, Jim understands. Oh my God, these characters. Oh, we got traffic in the hallways.
Are you going to stay on the ship?
I thought I might.
As crowded as my planet is, I could wish for it to hold one more person. I will miss you, Captain James Kirk.
Cool. Look at her running dark. Oh, she's such a beauty. Very interesting premise to this episode. Very interesting premise to this episode. All right, everybody, we just finished Star Trek, the original series, Season 3, Episode 16, The Mark of Gideon. And the only thing left to do is talk about it. All right, everyone, we just finished The Mark of Gideon, the 16th episode of the third and final season of Star Trek, the original series. Interesting premise on this one in that, we had a very similar setup, I don't like to poo-poo stuff because the premise of this one was unique above the other things that we've had. However, this whole Jim's isolated, he thinks he's somewhere else, the people are watching, there's an attractive person thrown in there with him, he has to figure out how to get out of there. We've seen a lot of that, even in season 3, just in isolation, we've seen a lot of that. Like wink of an eye just pops up as being almost very similar setup. But let's not look at that. Let's not look at the similarities that we have between this episode and the others. What we really need to look at here is the theme of the episode was really interesting. The problem was that you had a planet that had developed, and in its development had kind of eradicated disease and almost in a natural type of format. And because of the loss of there's no, infections in the atmosphere, there's no diseases or illnesses or anything like that. You had a population that began to live longer and longer and longer with no kind of hope of, cycling through population generations and things like that until it's incredibly crowded. Now, with all of that being said, it lends itself to the question of if the entire planet of Gideon is as packed as we were led to believe, what the hell does that mean? I mean, how do you have enough food to feed everybody? How do you have enough water for everyone to drink? You know what I mean? Just the staples of life. Like, how do you house everybody? How do you, I mean, it's like, if it's that crowded, then there's no way that you can have fields of food, or orchards or, wheat or anything that requires a big footprint, I mean, where are you going to put it? So, there's a lot of problems with it in that, you can say, I mean, I'm sure there's workarounds for that. Like they have got maybe replicators or something like that that create food, or some other type of workaround that they kind of organically they came up with as the population grew. That's possible, but at the same time, it's we have no medical professionals on medical facility. Okay, well then, that I have questioned the birth rate. What if somebody breaks an arm? I mean, even in Plato's Stepchildren, we had, if somebody got hurt, they needed a doctor, right? You know what I mean? And you think that illness is one thing, accident is a complete other. It's not like these people were impervious to harm. I mean, Spock tore through those two guards pretty quick. Jim did too, to be honest with you. Also, there's a comparison there. Now, I know that Spock got the drop on the two of them, but Jim in a fight, Jim's going to fight with everything he's got. Spock is going to fight effectively and make the fight last as short as as finite as possible. He's in and out of these fights, and that's why I always kind of fall back to when Kirk and Spock fought, and it's I know a lot of people were I read comments from back in the day Jim fights Spock, and I'm you don't want to see that. Nobody that loves both of those characters needs to see that, because as much as a Jim Kirk guy as I am, Spock's gonna absolutely kick his ass in his right. Spock can kick just about anybody's ass, especially when he's in his right frame of mind, he's not, addled or anything. If he's got his faculties about him, he's going to kick some ass. But anyway, that was my tangent, how quickly the guards were dispatched. I did different approaches to it, and then again, you got the drop on him, and the other one was kind of in plain sight, but, it was interesting. And again, as I always mention, Spock had every opportunity to pinch that second guy on the neck, and he thought, nah, I'm going to throw him down the hallway. That's, to me, in my head canon, that's when a little bit of Spock's humanity, just a bubble comes to the surface and pops, and he's just I'm just going to throw you. Where did that come from? That's your mom. I absolutely love it. Just when we get these little glimpses of the humanity that pops out, I'm not even sure Spock realizes he's doing it. And again, I'm sure the writers would say, oh no, that's not it at all. But in my head canon, that's it. But anywho, I thought it was a very interesting kind of, it was an interesting problem that I think had a lot of difficulties maintaining my disbelief that problem lasted to this point. Normally, if you had an overpopulation problem like that, they'd find like a completely barren world that basically like populated itself out of existence. No wars, is that like, I mean, again, I know that I'm just trying to think of ways to, I hate to say it, reduce the population. But, I mean, again, too, with the idea that, you've got, Jim said, hey, we've got sterilization procedures. We've got ways to, limit the birth rate. I'm talking about, birth control and things of that nature. And of course, then, the Gideons respond with, oh no, life is very sacred on Gideon, and that's where a lot of this comes from, just our love of life, and that's what generated like our ability to live long and all this stuff. But again, you have to think with the time period that this is written, and we're hurtling towards Roe v. Wade at this point, that this is definitely something that they have to be addressing. If not, it's a fantastic coincidence and similarity. I don't believe that. We've established in other episodes, most notably with, Let That Be Your Final Battlefield, that, Star Trek is never going to shy away from certain themes. Never. I mean, they will cloak them in the veil of science fiction, but at the same time, they're making them very overt. I mean, it's, again, if somebody watched this who had a very strong opinion one way or the other about the abortion issue, I think that they would absolutely pick up on this. Could they be mad about it? Could they get upset? I don't know. That's an interesting thing, though, with bringing up such a societal kind of third rail, which is a lot of times what Star Trek does. It just lends, this episode in and of itself was okay. But I think that the connotations of this episode are wide-reaching, and we need to know everything we can about this episode. We need to know exactly how it was received, how people looked at this and said, oh, we see what you're doing, Star Trek, and we either like or don't like the message that you're trying to deliver, but I don't have that information, and we need to find somebody I know. Help me out here, friends. General? Greetings and salutations, my friends. 'Tis I, leader of men, lover of women, and best friend to Jim Kirk, General Trelane. Retired. Friends, this is where, after having watched and reacted to an original series episode of Star Trek, I like to dig a little bit deeper and find out what went on behind the cameras, things that if I had looked up before having reacted would have ruined the episode for me. But to keep myself from wandering off into the weeds for 3 hours, I've given myself 5 categories to explore. The first of which, writer and director. Who were they? The second, guest stars. Did we have any? The third, of the core cast or the Big 8, who was present? The fourth, production notes, usually the juiciest of all the categories. What went on behind the cameras? And last but certainly not least, our category 5, a memorable quote from this episode. Let's get started. All right, my friends, and for our very first category, writer and director, who were they? Well, we actually have 2 writers, a writing team for this one, as we have George F. Slavin and Stanley Adams. Much more on the familiar name of Stanley Adams when we get down to production notes. And who was our director for this episode? Judd Taylor. Friends, let's move on. And now for our second category, my friends, guest stars for this episode. Well, we had 2 prominent ones, even though there should have been about 500 billion extras in this one. We had 2 prominent guest stars. The first of which, Sharon Acker as O'Donna and David Hurst as Hoden. Friends, let's move on. All right, friends, and for our third category of the core cast, or the Big 8, who was present? Well, the people in the Big 8 include Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Sulu, Scotty Uhura, Chekhov, and Nurse Chapel. Everyone was here except for Nurse Chapel. Let's move on. And now, friends, for our fourth category, production notes, the juiciest of all the categories, where we find out what went on behind the cameras. Let's get started. All right, friends, and for our first production note, this one harkens back to the writing and directing category, but in this one, Stanley Adams was a writer of this episode. Stanley Adams was also Cyrano Jones from The Trouble with Tribbles. So it was very interesting that while he was on set for that episode, he was contemplating and maybe talking to all of the different showrunners and different producers and actors about one of the stories that he was working on with his writing partner, and it dealt with overpopulation. Well, he continued to work on it. That script manifested itself and thus became the Mark of Gideon. Let's move on. And now, friends, for our second production note. This one's an interesting one. We've had a lot of age-related things here in the last couple, but this one's interesting. Despite their playing father and daughter, David Hurst was actually only 9 years older than Sharon Acker, which I think is pretty interesting because they seem to be just casting for casting's sake and then, using makeup to kind of age up somebody and things like that. I'm not sure if that was a sign of the times as far as production budget goes, or they were just picking the best of the best. Either way, I thought it worked out. Let's move on. And now, friends, for our third production note, and this is the one we talked about in the thoughts section a little bit. Like, with this conversation and Kirk's kind of message of, potential sterilization or birth control issues, considering the political climate at the time, shooting towards Roe v. Wade, I wanted to know how it was received, especially by the studio. The studio allowed that to get through, right? Well, they did, but that's just because they didn't notice it. Whether it was just a complete oversight by studio censors or, standards and practices saw it and didn't think anything of it, which I can't imagine, it simply slipped through, which I thought was very, very interesting. And potentially, as one place noted, I can't really corroborate this because I got it from one website, because there was just a lack of budget and kind of a lack of interest in Star Trek at that time, that this might have just been kind of a hand wave, that somebody really didn't pay too much of attention for this particular script, and it slipped through. Let's move on. Now, friends, for our fourth production note, I wanted to know how this episode was received, primarily for, its kind of references to, like we just mentioned, to sterilization and birth control, but more so, I'm curious, to, especially in season 3, just did people like it? Well, I'll tell you this, I felt that it was kind of middle of the pack, maybe a little bit below average in its delivery and its execution, but history was not kind to the Mark of Gideon. As I have several different lists that I look through now. Now that I'm towards the end, I can safely start to look at some of these lists. And normally it's not ranked lists. I look at, what they assign like a star value. Usually it's out of 4. I will let you know this, that the Mark of Gideon never rose higher than 2 out of 4 stars. Normally it was 1 or 1.5. So not too well liked by the critics that watched it and the fans that kind of have ranked it. I mean, you have to rank them somehow, and I guess it kind of fits that this is a little bit below average or a little bit below. Well, let's move on. Now, friends, for our fifth and final production note, and this one, I kind of broke my own rules for this one, and I used secondary source materials, as I used Shane Johnson's book, The Worlds of the Federation, to specifically see, I wanted to know how many people were actually on Gideon, like what was the total population value. Okay, so again, grain of salt. I'm not sure if this was factual or accurate or supported or canon or anything like that, but before the Enterprise's kind of, not interference, but the Enterprise being in Gideon's, everything that happened in the episode, there were 500 billion people on the planet. 500 billion, which actually, according to the book, is greater than the population of the entire Federation. Which I don't even know if that's true. I have no clue or context for any of that. You all let me know. But what ended up happening is once the disease was introduced, it killed 485 billion of them, leaving only 15 billion, which is still a lot, 15 billion on planet, to the point where after this event, the planet itself was almost empty. Unreal. Let's move on. And now, friends, for our fifth and final category, a memorable quote from this episode. Well, I picked one of the sweet ones because I'm a sucker for the sweet ones. And this one is from O'Donna to Kirk. And she says, and I quote, "As crowded as my planet is, I could wish for it to hold one more person." Friends, thus ends another installment of Q&A. Until such time as you and I get to play with our dear friend Jim again, behave yourselves.